This week's artist date is much different than last week's. Last week I went and gathered loquats in the sun, and it was wonderful, and I felt like really open in my heart, and there were all these little synchronicities coming in. Like, I took the metro over to my friend's house. I missed my first train and thought, oh, whatever, it'll come. And so I kind of wandered around the neighborhood. And then when I got there for my second train, I bumped into one of my friends that I hadn't seen in quite some time. And so that was like really great. Just really felt really nice. And then this week I'm hit with a truck, it feels like. Because I'm in the third week of The Artist's Way, I've tried reading this book so many times, and I recognize that, like, previously I've gotten to the third week and stopped, and I couldn't ever really understand, like, looking back, it's really because things just started happening in my life, and there were just so many things, and I was so stressed that the book would just kind of go on the back burner. But this year, this time, I'm like, I'm gonna finish this thing. And what do you know? Week 3 was about like dealing with criticism and shame, recovering a sense of power, anger, and also talks about synchronicity, but really about like shame and overcoming that. And I feel like it's just so interesting because I hear people, like friends who have finished this book, say, oh, usually around the third or fourth week, your life falls apart. And it's true. It's so true. Regardless of how today has gone and how difficult it's been, I am still going to do my artist date because I usually do them on Sundays. And today's Sunday. So this week I'm making loquat jam. I've had my little loquats in the freezer since last week, and I've never made jam before, but I'm going to make it. The reason why I'm just so upset is because this morning I woke up and my bike was stolen. And a lot of feelings have come up. So I live in downtown Los Angeles in like a loft style apartment, and the middle of my apartment hallway is actually like, it's a private area, but it's like this chute that opens up to the ceiling. So when I step directly outside of my door, I can look outside and like see the ceiling. This building used to be an old theater, and this area was like the backstage, back the people who work the shows. This is behind the theater access. It's very cool, very urban, very like Blade Runner vibes. But we have this like private patio with a metal grate that we put our bikes on. I always lock my bike on it and my boyfriend, like no one else. It's like directly outside of our front door. Anyways, this morning I thought, oh, maybe for my artist date I'll wake up and like go biking along the LA River. And that then my bike was actually gone. And like, I know there's people that are like, oh my god, she's crying on the internet, and it's just a bike, like get over it, right? But like, not to get into it too much, but it's a huge fault within my apartment complex because how they handle security is just so unprofessional. When we had first moved in, my boyfriend's bike was also stolen from the basement. The security officer doesn't do anything about it. We recently learned that he was actually letting homeless people into the building. And even after I reached out to management, they still don't do anything about it. It was way more than just a bike for me. And I think, if anything, this book is helping me realize these areas in which I'm blocked. And this is one of them. So I'm just going to be opening up about the feelings and complexities that I'm kind of going through during this artist date while I make jam. So yeah, I've always loved biking my whole life. I've biked since I was really young, and actually when my family had moved from Brazil to the United States, we moved to Minnesota, of all places. It was like polar opposite climate. Like a month after we moved, I fell off my bike, essentially got in a bike accident and was run over by a truck. And I was 4. And I have a lot of vivid memories from that time. And actually that moment is something I go back to a lot just because I had felt this, like, I had experienced like a near-death experience. And I know people have their differences when it comes to like what they believe in and everything. I just know what I experienced. I'm not saying that's for sure what it is or anything, but I just know what my experience was, and that like really changed the course of my life. I nearly died. I was in a coma. I had like cracked my head open in two places, and then my knee was busted because the truck ran over my knee, and then the trailer it was pulling ran me over as well. Anyways, I recovered, and I always kept biking after that. Like even after I got out of the hospital, I was gifted a bike from the man who was driving, and granted, like, he was innocent. I mean, I was so small and he was at a stop sign. He didn't see me underneath him. It was purely just an accident. And so he gifted me a bike. And then when I got home, the first thing I did was hop on my bike and rip my stitches out. And so that kind of explains who I am as a person. And even growing up, like I always had a bike. I would fall a lot. Like I remember in the fourth grade, I had fallen on this big hill behind my house. I saw my mom and my sister go down it without handlebars. And I thought, oh, I can do that too. That looks really cool. And I tried it, and my handlebars started wobbling, and then I just flipped over the front of it. Basically, the entirety of the skin on my face on this side, all over my arms, was like shredded off from the sidewalk. Just always biking, regardless of falling or not. Then, like in my adulthood, when I lived in Philly while I was studying, I biked around the city everywhere, like to go to work, to go to the academy, go home. Granted, it was all within like city center, but I was in a car accident where I was doored. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. And also, like, just when you open your door, like, just open it with your left hand. Like, look and open with your left hand. Because this was like, I didn't even have any time to react, and flipped over my handlebars, somehow landed on the back of my head, and just like whiplash. Thank God I was wearing a helmet, but I was like severely concussed. I missed quite a few weeks of school, and probably at like one of the lowest points in my life at that time, but I still biked, like once I recovered, I still got back on my bike. And I think all of this kind of has this pattern, which is like a connection with my dad, which I actually don't talk a lot about, even with my friends. So talking about it on the internet feels really strange, but it's a part of my story, and it's something that I don't have to feel shame about anymore. So I think part of this is kind of me sharing a little bit more about those emotions. Our dynamic was always very complex, and when I was younger, I really like wanted his approval, and I really wanted to be like this best daughter. Like that was very much the image that my family was, like, oh, this perfect immigrant family, and they have it all together. Like my parents were both architects, and it was this like right. But I really struggled with that because there was a lot going on behind the scenes. And specifically with this relationship with my dad, he just started buying a lot of bicycles. He had a lot of very, very nice bikes, like a whole collection of bikes. It was one of those things where rather than communicating with his family, he would go on like a 5 hour bike ride instead, and then give us the silent treatment for like weeks. And back when, we were speaking, because I've been estranged from him for years, which maybe is a different conversation to have. But when we were speaking, I remember there was a time where we had like built a bike together. He had showed me this frame of a bike and asked if I wanted to build it with him. And I said, yes, of course. And so we did it. We got all the tires. We like built the whole thing. I rode it around. And then I remember like sometime around the pandemic, he sold it without telling me, which like was a pattern because he had this thing of like controlling with money. If you weren't talking or you're going over the silent treatment, or if I like was really not happy with his behavior, he would try to like buy my approval back. So somehow, it was like, oh, here's a bike, or here's these new pairs of winter boots that you needed, or whatever it was growing up. Like there's honestly too many times to count. And it was like, oh cool, then you're on speaking terms, right? Like, okay, we're good. Until the next time when I didn't do what he wanted me to, or if I like made him mad, all of a sudden the boots would be gone, or like the bike would be missing, and I'm like, what happened? Oh, I returned it. Like he would just like take the material, take the things back as like punishment. And so I really struggled with that a lot. And it wasn't until like I kind of moved into my early 20s that I gave myself some separation from like the nuclear family dynamic and started being able to see things a bit more straight. I was Googling like things that were happening. Like I couldn't understand the dynamics that were happening in my life and with my relationship with my father. And on some like odd forum, I came across covert narcissism. Nowadays, I know everyone's like, oh my God, like they're so narcissistic or no, no, no. And I think like it's valid. But when it comes to like sincere narcissistic abuse, you can't explain it to someone who has not experienced it because they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Like they will look at you like you're crazy. And I realized that there's certain friends that were like, I'm so grateful, but they were raised in a more healthy environment. And so they kind of look at me like, what? And I just can't explain it to them because they just haven't experienced it. But when I do meet people who have come across these like very complex feelings, it's like they know exactly what I'm talking about. There's these hidden rules and like walking on eggshells and gifts that aren't really gifts and all this covert like control, right? That whole era of my life when I finally like distanced myself and like completely became estranged from him, it was like a fog had lifted. It was like I could see this giant cloud from far away. And I had actually made a painting about it. I might show a picture. This morning, when my bike was stolen, I felt rage, absolute rage. And as the day has gone on and I've like filed the police report and done all the logistics, I still have to hear back from my management company because it's Sunday and they don't consider this an emergency. But doing all these like administrative logistics, I've also come to terms with a lot of the emotions that I'm feeling. And to me, my bike was something that was like my first big girl purchase. It was like I finally had worked hard enough to get this bike for myself. It not only symbolized my freedom from this very toxic and controlling relationship, and even while I've moved like from Minnesota to Philly to LA like multiple times, I've always had my cats, whatever clothes I have, and my bike. So it's something that like means a lot to me. Without it, like it's my main mode of transportation. I bike everywhere in LA or I take the metro. I don't have a car. When I had first moved to LA, I mean, I was like, I knew I had to make sacrifices. I can work with not having a car as long as I have a studio, right? Like I can bike, I can do it. Like I grew up biking, it's fine. But now that this was taken in such a way, I feel like so vulnerable and sad. I've been like waving through either extreme sadness or just like pure rage. Yeah, it's just a lot of feelings that come up, and I think, it's usually when things are like taken from us, it's right before a period of growth and expansion. And I understand that. Like the times that have been the lowest for me right around the corner, it's usually something even better than I could have even imagined. Never thought I would like be the person to cry on the internet. And yet here I am. It's just very layered. Like as an independent artist, I'm doing this on my own, and it's hard. It's really, really hard, but nothing that's worth having like comes easily. Yeah, this is just it's really tough for me because it just brings up all these different emotions. This dynamic of like having my own independence, being my own person, not being affected by, outside sources or people that I'm like no longer attached to. But I just found it really interesting that it's during this week 3, that's, about shame and criticism that this comes up. Like, I really do feel like this week was just one thing after another, and I'm like, oh my god, when am I gonna get a break? And I'm trying to stay so positive and like journal. Like I journal every day, and I'm like focusing on like positive affirmations, and like this was kind of the nail on the coffin. And I just feel even more vulnerable because it happened like at my home. Like I will never lock my bike up outside ever. I either go straight from my house to the studio and I bring it upstairs with me. If I go to a cafe, I'll bring it inside the store with me. Like I will not ever leave it locked outside because I know it's a very valuable bike. And I last night like forgot to lock it onto the gate, and it's so strange because like both of my boyfriend's bikes, we usually stack them on top of each other or like next to each other, and they took my bike but not his, and his bike is also very valuable. So there's a lot more going on behind the scenes with like the management here in this building, which just adds another like very complex layer. But I think within myself, I recognize that while I have all of these emotions, I also really struggle with asking for help. I really, really struggle with asking for help. Like, even telling people that my bike was stolen, like, I posted an Instagram post about it, and I was like, oh my God, like, this doesn't fit my aesthetic. Like, people are gonna wonder what happened, or like, oh, she gets around by a bike, or like all of these criticizing thoughts. And I'm like, where is this even coming from? I recognize no one's gonna come and like save me. There's not gonna be anyone that's like, oh my god, like this is a lesson for like if you're an artist out there and you're wanting to do this and you're wanting to like create a life, a creative life for yourself, no one is coming to save you. No one's gonna look in a crowd and be like, oh my god, Julia, there you are. I've been looking for you, and pluck you out. No one's gonna put you where you want to be. There's no one outside of yourself who will do that for you. That person has to be you. It has to be you. And I know that at these points where like it's been really, really hard for me and I've been really struggling, I have to lean inwards. I have to lean inwards. I know I want to like take more care of my body and maybe do some yoga later, like a nice yin yoga to really calm down and control the things that I can control. I hope next week is more positive because your girl's really going through it this week. Yeah, I think another thing is that criticism, like even the more I've opened up online, I've had certain thoughts come up of like, oh, don't post that kind of content. You're not an influencer, or like, no one really cares about this. What are you doing? And I'm like, you know what? Social media is for me. It's for me. And even the times where I feel really vulnerable and really nervous posting something, even if there's only one view or one comment, as long as someone saw it and it was able to resonate with them, that's it. That's it. Because I know when I had first started my own healing journey, there was not a lot of information out there. I really was like walking around in the dark. I was very lucky to find an EMDR therapist that helped tremendously when it came to like connecting my body and understanding some of the trauma that I had gone through up until those years. And I want to give back in my own way in hopes that like whoever's looking will maybe come across what they needed at that point in time. But I'm also not really keen of listening to that criticism, that criticizing voice anymore, because I've been listening to it my whole life and it hasn't really served me. So I don't want to listen to it anymore. I really want to go with like my instinct, and if that means crying in a video on YouTube every once in a while, like that's fine. Yeah. So those are just some of the emotions that are going up, and I'm turned to this page in the artist way. And it says growth is an erratic forward movement, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Remember that and be very gentle with yourself. A creative recovery is a healing process. That's very true. This feels like one of those 1 step back moments, and I really trust that I will be propelled into something that I can't even see right now. And yeah, maybe I'm just gonna stay open. But I am really missing my bike. So let's make jam.